Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into something that is quite literally reshaping education as we know it. We are unpacking a super fascinating, incredibly timely document, the Wilmette Institute's policy on artificial intelligence in academia. Now, whether you're a student, an educator, or just, closely following this whole generative AI boom, this document is an absolute goldmine. It doesn't just slap down a list of boring rules. No, it actually wrestles with the deep philosophy of learning in the age of machines. It's a real game changer. But look, before we get into the nitty-gritty rules, we've got to ask the big elephant in the room question. How does this crazy human-like technology actually impact the core of what it means to learn, think, and grow intellectually? Like, are we using AI to genuinely get smarter, or are we just outsourcing our cognitive development to some massive server farm somewhere? The Institute built their entire policy around resolving this exact tension. They want to make absolutely sure that AI serves human growth, rather than, stunting it. So, to make sense of this policy, we'll be moving through 5 key areas today. First up, the AI academic shift. Second, the 4 guiding principles. Third, what they call displacement AI. Fourth, the rules of engagement. And finally, faculty roles and detection. Let's get right into it.
Section 1, the AI academic shift. This is all about what happens when technology actually simulates thought. And let's be real, we aren't just dealing with fancy calculators anymore. We are looking at tools deployed on a massive global scale that literally simulate cognitive functions. And because they feel so eerily human when we interact with them, the policy insists on a really strict baseline. AI must always remain subordinate to human judgment. Basically, you're the driver, the AI is just the vehicle. It's that simple. Moving on to Section 2, the 4 pillars of integrity. These are the guiding principles.
So, what foundational values guide the Institute's approach here? Well, instead of just banning everything, which, let's face it, never works, they built their framework on 4 solid pillars to ensure AI enhances rather than replaces real learning. First up is human agency. This just means you, the student, are actually doing the heavy lifting. Second, integrity and trust. So, not passing off AI's work as your own. Third is purposeful use, meaning you're using it strategically for a specific goal, not just because it's sitting there on your screen. And fourth, critical awareness. This one demands we open our eyes to the biases and ethical pitfalls of these systems. It's absolutely crucial.
And this idea right here brilliantly captures the core of that first pillar, human agency. The Institute makes it perfectly clear. Even when you are fully permitted to use AI as a tool, the final voice, the nuanced understanding, the intellectual development, it all has to be entirely your own. If a professor reads your paper, they need to hear you. They don't want a sanitized algorithmic echo of the internet, right? Okay, Section 3, understanding displacement AI and the downsides of automation. This section connects perfectly to that critical awareness principle. The policy uses a pretty striking term here, displacement AI. They use this to describe technology that actively substitutes human effort rather than supporting it. And the warning here is stark. They point out that these tools can actually contribute to the de-skilling of humans. Think about it for a second. If you never struggle through synthesizing a complex text because you always just have ChatGPT summarize it for you, well, you eventually lose the cognitive skill of synthesis. The AI basically obfuscates the cognitive labor that your brain actually needs to learn and grow. It's like skipping leg day, but for your brain. The policy also points to a really strong warning from the Climate Justice University's union statement. They argue that these massive commercial models rely on huge swaths of data that are, in their words, mostly stolen or otherwise unethically obtained. So a massive part of critical awareness is simply acknowledging that the magic of these tools comes from a process that a lot of educators argue is fraught with serious ethical compromises. By outlining these specific claims, the massive environmental and energy impacts, the discriminative biases, and the human de-skilling, the source frames exactly why the uncritical everyday use of tools like ChatGPT is seen as totally against true educational values. The Institute really wants students to think critically, not just about what the AI spits out, but how that output was generated in the first place and at what cost. All right, Section 4, the playbook. Let's talk about the actual rules of engagement for AI in coursework. So how do these high-minded global principles actually translate down to your desk when you're staring at a midnight deadline? Well, here is the ground-level playbook. The Institute neatly categorizes AI use into 3 buckets: what is freely permitted, what requires explicit instructor approval, and what is a strict violation of academic honesty. It's a highly pragmatic approach. They know students are going to use these tools, so giving crystal clear clarity is way better than a blanket ban. Let's look at a couple of specific comparisons. The most crucial distinction here is the difference between interacting and outsourcing. You are absolutely allowed to use AI as a sparring partner. Brainstorm ideas, clarify a tricky concept, maybe ask it to check your grammar. But you absolutely cannot cross the line into having it generate partial drafts, complete assignments, or your discussion forum posts. The exact moment the AI starts doing the actual creation of the submitted work, you've crossed into academic dishonesty territory.
It's a similar story with reading. While AI can be a fantastic help for generating initial outlines or, say, making an infographic to help organize your thoughts, you are strictly required to personally read, watch, or listen to all assigned course materials yourself. Having an AI summarize a book chapter just so you don't have to read it, that's a huge no-go. The reading itself is the cognitive labor you're there to perform. You can't outsource the workout.
Finally, we have Section 5, Faculty Roles and the Human Element in Detection.
Now, this is one of the most refreshingly honest parts of this whole document. It stands on AI detection software. We all know automated AI detection tools are notoriously unreliable. They constantly flag innocent students or totally miss actual AI-generated text. Because of that, the Institute outright refuses to base academic dishonesty decisions solely on an algorithm. Instead, they rely on faculty judgment. They look at the overall authenticity of the work and actually talk to the student. This is exactly why they encourage you to keep your notes and early drafts, so you can prove your human process if asked.
And hey, faculty are held to an ethical standard here too. While professors can definitely use AI to help with administrative planning or designing a course, they are expressly forbidden from using it to replace meaningful human feedback to students. The human connection between teacher and student is still paramount. Faculty have to model the exact same ethical, transparent practices they demand from their classes.
As we wrap up this explainer, it's pretty clear the Institute's ultimate goal isn't just to play cop and catch cheaters. They fully recognize that most students just want to use AI to support their learning. The goal here is to reduce anxiety and guide ethical use. And that leaves us with this essential, kind of provocative question for your own academic journey. Think about it. When you log into ChatGPT today, are you using it to genuinely build your own capacity? Or are you using it to bypass the very struggle that actually makes you grow? Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive. Catch you on the next explainer.